Welcome back to the GCSE Maths Pro YouTube channel. Today's video is on inequalities. This is now part 2, which is how we draw inequalities on a number line. If you haven't seen part 1, which was about solving linear inequalities, make sure to check that out because we will be needing it in the second half of today's video. This is a topic that comes up in both foundation and higher tier, so make sure that you go through everything before skipping on to the next parts. As you can see, this is part 2. We've then got inequalities regions and solving inequalities to follow this video. However, I just want to make it clear, these two topics are higher tier only, okay? These last two are higher tier only. So if you're doing foundation, just stop after today's video, and that's all you need to know on inequalities. So let's get straight into it. We've got a number line here. Show the inequality x is less than 4 on the number line. Obviously, before we start drawing it on the number line, we also need to be able to interpret the inequality symbols. As I've just read it, x is less than 4. Are you comfortable with realizing that if that symbol is facing towards the 4, it means 4 is the bigger number, right? X is smaller. If not, the way that I like to do it, which you probably saw in primary school, but to be honest, it's the easiest way to remember, is imagine that this is a crocodile's mouth, and it's going to be facing the number that is bigger. Okay, so if it's facing towards the 4 is bigger and the x is smaller, therefore it is less than 4, okay? Now obviously x is anything less than 4. It can't be equal to 4 because we haven't got that equal to symbol, have we? It's just less than 4. So, in terms of how do we then draw this on the number line? Well, you're going to put a circle on top of basically the number they've given you, which is 4. So I'm going to put a circle at 4. Now, as I said, because it's not equal to 4, we're not going to colour it in. Just leave it empty, okay? And then you've got to figure out, okay, well, it's kind of open-ended, isn't it? Saying x is just anything less than 4. Well, that could go down to negative infinity, couldn't it? So then I'm just going to draw an arrow to the left because that's covering anything that's less than 4, isn't it? Any of these numbers are obviously less than 4. So just draw your arrow to the end of the number line that they've given you, right? So it covers everything because, as we said, it's only a one-sided inequality, right? We don't have two parts. So it's anything less than 4. And as I said, don't colour in the circle if it doesn't have the equals to bit, which this one doesn't, okay? It's literally as simple as that. So let's do another example. Here we've got show the inequality x is greater than minus 2 on the number line. Now this one I know is greater. X is bigger than minus 2 because, like we said, the inequality is going to face towards the bigger number. Obviously, x represents a number, right? So in this case, x is bigger than minus 2. Okay, so just draw your circle at the number they've given you. So we are going to draw it on minus 2. And then our arrow this time is going to be going to the right, isn't it? Because it's bigger than that. And you just extend it until the end of the number line that they've given you. So I've done it up to 7. Obviously x could be bigger than 7, but my number line doesn't go further than that. I'm also not going to colour in my circle because it's not equal to minus 2. It's just anything bigger. And that's your answer. Okay, now you can see we've got our equals to part as well in this inequality. So show the inequality x is greater than or equal to 0 on the number line. So still the same thing, draw the circle on the number they give you, which is 0 in this case. However, this time it's saying, okay, it's greater than 0, but it could also be equal to 0. That's including 0. So I'm going to just colour it in. It doesn't have to be perfect, you just scribble it in, make it obvious that it's coloured in. And the same thing, okay, it's greater than 0, so I'm still going to draw my arrow to the right. Anything 0 or bigger. Okay, that's the only difference. Colour it in if you've got this extra equals symbol. If you don't have it, leave it blank. Okay, show the inequality x is less than or equal to 6 on the number line. At this point, it's just the same thing again, isn't it? We're just repeating ourselves. So the number is 6. I'm going to draw my circle on 6. I'm going to colour it in because it's also could be equal to 6, as you see by that symbol. Now, it's facing the 6, right? Which means 6 is bigger than x. Okay, so my arrow is going to be drawn to the left this time. Anything smaller than 6, okay? So 6 or anything smaller. And that is literally it. Okay, so as I was saying before, we had kind of like an open-ended or a one-part inequality, didn't we? Now, as you can see here, we've got what I would call two parts. We've got, a starting point, which is -1, and then up until 5. This is not open-ended, is it? Okay, we've got a range, effectively. X is between these two values. So in this case, you're going to have to draw 2 circles. Obviously, still just on those 2 numbers. So -1 gets a circle, and 5 gets a circle. Now, the -1 circle I'm not going to colour in because it's not equal to that, is it? It's just x is obviously greater than or bigger than the -1. However, you can see that x is less than or equal to 5. So yes, I am going to colour in this one. So just colour in this one. Sometimes you'll colour in both, sometimes just one. Maybe you won't colour in either. It just depends what they've given you. Now in this case, because we've kind of got this range, right, it's not open-ended, is it? It's just between -1 and 5. I'm not going to use an arrow this time. I'm just going to draw a line between them, okay? So still use your ruler, obviously try and draw it a lot more straight or a lot more level than I have. But it's not an arrow, is it? Because it's not open-ended. Okay, it's between -1 and 5. So that is your answer for this type of inequality. Probably at this point you've got the hang of it, so pause the video, give this one a go before you double check your answer. So we've got show the inequality -3 is less than or equal to x, which is less than 2 on the number line. So just start by putting a circle on those numbers, and I'm going to try and put my circles roughly about the same height. Do we need to colour in any of the circles? Well, if you look at this one with the -3, it's less than or equal to -3. So I'm going to colour in this one. The 2, however, stays empty, doesn't it, the circle? I'm not going to colour it in because it says x is less than 2, not also possibly equal to 2. And then I just draw a line between them, literally. That's as simple as it is. Okay? This one's almost a bit easier because you're not really having to worry about the inequality symbols because you know if I've got 2 circles, I'm going to have to join them up, aren't I, basically? Okay, so it's a little bit easier. Same thing again. Pause the video, try this one out, and then play when you're ready to check your answer. So show the inequality -4 is less than or equal to x, which is less than or equal to 3 on the number line. I'm drawing my circles where I've got the numbers -4 and 3. Both of these I need to colour in, don't I? Because they both have the extra equal symbol. So just scribble in both of those. And then I just have to join them up because we know that x is between those 2 values, isn't it? If not also equal to one of them. That's your answer. Literally, it is as simple as that. Okay, try this one as well. So we've got show the inequality 1 is less than x, which is less than 6 on the number line. So I'm going to circle 1 and 6. Now, I don't need to colour in either of these 2, do I? Because you can see it's less than, but it's not equal to for either of them. And then I just draw a line between them. So that one I'm leaving blank. That is just your answer. X is somewhere between those 2. Okay, so we're still drawing inequalities on number lines. However, this question is a little bit different. As you can see, we don't have it based purely just in x now. We have 2x. So they might add this in, and it will be an extra mark in the question if it's not just based with x is greater than or less than something. Okay? If you've got something else on the side of x, which is effectively in the way, isn't it? This is where looking at the first video on solving linear inequalities is going to be helpful. Okay, we're going to do exactly the same thing as you did in that video, and then you can draw your inequality on the number line once we've rewritten it as x on its own on one side, and you've moved whatever is in the way onto the other side of the inequality. So what I mean by that is obviously the 2 is in the way, okay? This number line is based purely on x, not on 2x. So if you haven't seen that video, go back and check it. But as a quick recap, you can just pretend that this is an equal sign if you prefer. If that's easier to figure out. Ignore this inequality symbol for now, and then we'll deal with it later when we're actually drawing on the number line. Just a normal linear equation, isn't it? What we mean by linear is when you've just got x. It's technically x to the power of 1, isn't it? Okay? It's effectively like if you were to draw a straight line on a graph, isn't it? Just x. It's not x squared. It's not anything funny. So all I need to do is move the 2 across in this example. Same with normal linear equations. If I want to move something from one side to the other, I have to do the opposite, don't I? This is currently 2 times x. So obviously I'm going to have to divide by 2. So divide by 2 on both sides. That leaves me with just obviously 1x, and 6 divided by 2 is 3. Then just if you have changed it to an equal symbol, just change it back to the symbol that they have. Obviously a reminder, as you will have seen in the first video, if you've multiplied or divided by a negative number, the symbol will flip direction. But to be honest, most of the time you won't need to do that. So in this case, we don't need to worry about flipping the symbol. It is just as it was before. Now that I've done this, and I've got my inequality based around x, which is effectively just 1x, isn't it? That's the whole point. We just want x on its own. I can now just proceed with exactly what we did in the previous questions and put it on my number line. So I've got x is less than 3, isn't it? I'm going to draw my circle on 3. X is less than that, so my arrow is going to go to the left, anything below 3 or smaller than 3. And I'm not going to colour it in because obviously it's less than 3. It's not also possibly equal to 3. Just less than 3. Okay, so leave it blank. That's your answer for this one. Okay, if you have seen the previous video, you can obviously pause this video now and try out the next few, as you'll probably know what to do at this point. If not, then keep playing. So, show the inequality 3x minus 4 is greater than or equal to minus 13 on the number line. So obviously I can't have 3x minus 4, I need just x, right? So I'm going to write it over here, I'm going to ignore for now the inequality, I'm going to put it just as an equal sign. How would I normally solve this to get x? Well, it's actually 2 steps, isn't it? I've got a 3 and a 4 that are in the way. So I'm going to move the 4 first by adding 4, because that's the opposite to minus 4. Add it to both sides, so I get 3x, because obviously minus 4 plus 4 cancels out. Minus 13 plus 4, well, that will give me minus 9, won't it? And now I can divide by 3 to get just x on its own. Let's put it over here. So I get x is equal to minus 3. So minus 9 divided by 3 is minus 3, isn't it? Now, I haven't divided or multiplied by any negatives, so I don't need to change the symbol. I'm just going to copy the direction that I had the symbol previously. It was facing the x. It also had an equals part, but now I've got minus 3. So now we've got x is greater than or equal to minus 3. At this point, we just draw it as normal. So minus 3, I'm going to draw a circle there. It is equal to it, isn't it? It says let x is greater than or equal, so I'm going to colour it in. And I'm going to draw an arrow. Obviously, x is greater than that, so I'm going to draw it to the right. Anything equal to minus 3 or bigger. Okay, again, if you've done the previous video, you'll know how to deal with this type of inequality where we've actually got the range, haven't we? We've got 2 inequality symbols. It's not open-ended anymore. And as you will know, we basically just deal with it in the same way, except when we're moving numbers across, before it was from one side to the other, now we're just doing the whole of the inequality. So what I mean by that is, in this case, I'm going to leave it as the same symbols, just because it's a bit odd if we have 2 lots of equal signs, isn't it? But what I would have to do to get x on its own in the middle is I need to move the 1 and I need to move the 5, don't I? So the 1 is plus 1, so to move it I have to subtract 1. You're just going to subtract 1 from all 3 parts of this inequality. So minus 4 take away 1 is going to be minus 5. Copy the same symbol. 5x plus 1 take away 1 is obviously just 5x, which is what we want. Copy the symbol again. 21 minus 1 is 20. And finally, I just need to then move the 5, don't I? Which I would have to divide by 5, because that's currently 5x, which is multiply. Divide everything by 5. So minus 5 divided by 5 is minus 1. Same symbol again. 5x divided by 5 is just 1x. Same symbol again. And 20 divided by 5 is 4. So that's your new inequality, okay? And now we're just going to draw it as we did before. We need to now have 2 circles, don't we? One with the minus 1, one with the 4. We need to colour in the minus 1 because that one was x is greater than or equal to minus 1. The 4 it's not equal to, is it? So I'm not going to colour that one in. And then I just need to join them up. Okay, this one's a range. It's open-ended. It's not open-ended, is it? We've got x is somewhere between minus 1 and 4. So just draw a line between them. Okay, so it doesn't matter if you've got an inequality that's got, just 1 symbol or 2 symbols. The way that we are going to solve it to get the x as just 1x, the way that we're going to rearrange it is the exact same. You just have to apply what you're doing to all parts, okay? Not just 2 parts, but all 3. So minus 1 across all 3 parts, divided by 5 across all 3 parts. Okay, the last part of this bit of the topic is they could actually reverse the question. So we've obviously seen it where they've said this is the inequality, draw it on the number line, but they could also just give you the number line with the inequality drawn and ask you to write down the original inequality. So write down the inequality for x shown on the number line. So you can see here it's obviously based on x, right? It's based on 1x. We're just reversing it. We're going to go, okay, right, what I would do with this, obviously we would need an x, wouldn't we? Where the circle is, that number, just write that next to the x. So -1. Then the hardest part is to figure out the symbol, isn't it? So first of all, before I deal with the fact that it's coloured in, is x greater than or less than -1? Is it bigger than -1 or smaller? Well, because it's obviously got an arrow to the right, it's covering all of these numbers that are bigger than -1, isn't it? So x is clearly greater than -1. So I need to face my symbol towards the x. Then I can check, now that I know which way my symbol is facing, do I need the little equals bit as well or not? Well, yeah, it's coloured in, isn't it? So it could also be equal to -1. That's literally it. Your answer is x is greater than or equal to -1. Simple as that. So let's look at this one. Same thing again. Write down the inequality for x shown on the number line. Well, this one's a range, isn't it? We know that x is somewhere between these two numbers. I'm going to write down both numbers. Obviously, write down the smaller one on the left, put the x in the middle, because it's a range, and then put the bigger one on the right side of the x. Now, the range is a bit easier because you know that if you write it, obviously, in the correct order of the size of the numbers, it all has to be facing that way, doesn't it? However, obviously, just double check. So, if x is between -3 and 1, it's obviously bigger than -3, isn't it? So it needs to face towards the x. But it also could be equal to -3, couldn't it? Then if I look at the -1, well, x is anything less than that, isn't it? -1 is bigger. So I'm going to face the symbol towards the -1. But this side is not going to have an equals because it's not coloured in. Okay, so that's how you would write the range. Okay, this is our last one. So this one you can see is an open-ended one. We've got write down the inequality for x shown on the number line. So I'm going to have x and just write down the number where the circle is, so 2. Then is x greater than 2 or less than 2? Well, clearly it's less than, isn't it? Because it's got an arrow facing towards the left, which is getting smaller. So 2 is bigger than x, so I need to face my symbol towards the 2. And then I don't need any equals, do I? Because it's not coloured in. So that is your answer. X is less than 2. Okay, so that is a variety of questions that could come up on how to show inequalities on a number line. So we've now done the first 2 parts of inequalities topic. The next 2 parts we have left, we need to highlight, as you can see, they are higher tier only. Okay, that's really important. They are higher tier only. So if you're doing foundation, the first 2 videos you've just finished watching are the only 2 that you need. Okay, you can stop there. That is inequalities done for you. If you are doing higher tier, continue on to the next video, which is inequalities regions, effectively how to draw inequalities on a graph. So thanks for watching this video. Make sure to check out the next 2 videos if you're doing higher tier. If you're doing foundation, you can head back to the foundation tier playlist and check out any of the other topics that you might want to have a look at next.